Hello everyone, and welcome along to our Facebook Live broadcast. Thank you very much for attending. My name's Gavin Reid, and I'm a professor within the Department of Actuarial, Maths and Statistics at Heriot-Watt University. Today we're going to have a bit of a talk about some of the courses that we offer, particularly our actuarial courses, although we offer some other degrees also in financial maths, for example, and quantitative finance and maths too. And we'll focus on both undergraduate and postgraduate. But I'm going to start off talking a little bit about what an actuary actually does. We'll talk a bit about the job, the kind of good points about it, why you might be interested in doing it. And then we'll do a little bit of a case study involving international tennis superstar Andy Murray and how we might go about actually insuring him. Okay, the other thing to say is in the comments box on Facebook, if you do have any questions, please feel free at any time just to write your questions, jot them in there. We'll have a few pauses as we go through the session where I'll answer any questions that you might have, okay? Great, so let's get started. So we'll start off really with what an actuary actually is. So what does the job actually involve? And for me there's really kind of 4 or 5 big elements to the job. The first one is that actuaries work in the area of finance, and that could be in many different forms of finance. So it could be insurance, as we'll talk a little bit about later. It could be in pensions, banking increasingly, and investments too. So in any one of those kind of key areas. But the big kind of similarity between actuarial roles in those areas is that what we're really trying to do is fortune telling, so kind of predicting the future, if you like. But whereas fortune tellers tend to use crystal balls in order to do that, we try to be much more scientific by using maths and statistics. And really what we're trying to do is predict the future in the world of finance, and in particular the kind of bad things, if you like, that could happen, the kind of negative events which could impact people's money. So an example of that might be, for example, we might have tried to predict back in 2007, 2008, the fact that there was about to be a kind of big financial crisis where there was a kind of fall in the world's markets. And with that information, we could have made some decisions in order to manage that risk, because risk is really what it is. So for example, if we had invested in particular companies whose values we'd expected to fall, we could have tried to get out of there, really out of those investments before the fall actually happened. The final kind of big element, I think, of the job of an actuary is this idea of protection, which I guess kind of risk management falls into, but really what we're trying to do is act as a bit of a financial superhero, really, for the customers of the companies that we work for, in protecting their money and providing them protection in the event of particular things happening in their lives, but also protecting the money of the companies that we work for too, making sure that they don't lose out on money as they go either. So that for me is the kind of big elements of an actuarial job. You've got the idea of working in finance, you're working with people's money, predicting the future, using maths and statistics in order to manage risk, and then finally this idea of protection, the financial superhero. So why is this a good job? Why is it something that you might think about doing in the future? Well, for me there's kind of 3 big things to say here. Overall, a company called CareersCast every year does a survey of what they call the kind of best jobs in the world. So they go out and they interview a range of different people who do different jobs, and ask them about what's great about their work and maybe what's not so good. So they ask about things like the money, the work-life balance, the degree of challenge in the job, and general job satisfaction. And I'm quite proud of the fact that every year an actuary ends up in the top 10 best jobs on that list. It's nearly always in the top 5, and last year, and not for the first time, it was actually the #1 best job in the world on that list. I'm an actuary myself, and that makes me very proud to be one. I think some of the reasons why it does rank so highly are, well, the money's pretty good. And the money's not the only reason to do a job, but it makes a big difference. So the average starting salary of an actuarial trainee who might start out from university in a finance company, can you guess how much that might be? it's about £33,000 on average in the UK, so that's a pretty good starting salary. The other kind of benefit, if you like, is that actually that money can go up pretty quickly as you work. The downside is that you do need to complete exams, so there are 15 professional exams that you need to pass in order to qualify. But while you're passing those exams, with every exam you get, you'll get another increment to that salary. So pretty soon after you start work, you could be earning a lot more than that average salary. And by the time you qualify, which could be two or three years if you're good enough at it, that could be a salary of about £50,000 or £60,000 that you earn. It's a lot of money. So I think that's a good selling point for the job itself. The final thing I would say is that in the world today there's a lot of risk and uncertainty. So we've seen that this year in particular. We've seen the kind of uncertainty associated with Brexit, Britain exiting the European Union and the impact of that. We've seen the impact of the American presidential elections, for example. And we've also seen terrorism actually taking a big hold across the world. So these aren't great things for the world as a whole, I guess, but this uncertainty is great for the role of an actuary because it means that actuaries are more in demand than ever, really, in terms of the skills that they offer in managing these risks. Great, so for me that's the kind of big selling points of the job. Any questions so far?
We haven't got any Facebook questions. I had a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Why do you think being an actuary is the #1 most popular job, apart from the money?
Yeah, well, for me, I used to work in Standard Life before I worked here at the university, which is the biggest life insurance company in the UK. And for me, actually, the big thing that was great for me about the job was the degree of challenge of the job. So every day you would go into a kind of original kind of problem that you had to solve. And when I was a bit younger, I was a bit of a maths geek, loved maths, also loved problem solving, so doing things like whether it was Sudoku, logic problems. I still love doing, you get these escape rooms all over the world where you can try and get out of the room in an hour. I love all that kind of problem solving, and for me really the job of an actuary brings those two elements of maths and problem solving together really. So for me that's probably what's personally great about it.
Great.
Great, so yeah, just a reminder everyone, if you do have any questions, please feel free to stick them in the comments box there. But we'll move on now and we'll have a look at a particular example of the work of an actuary in the context of sports. And hopefully you're all aware that we're also very proud in Scotland that the #1 tennis player in the world at the moment is Andy Murray, a Scottish tennis player. He's from a kind of small town called Dunblane, which isn't too far actually from where we are in Edinburgh just now. We're very proud of having Andy as a kind of sports ambassador for us. And we're going to look at a little kind of original problem that an actuary might need to solve involving Andy Murray. And I faced a very similar problem actually when I worked at Standard Life. So what we're going to imagine is that Andy Murray, as our example, is going to come to us as an insurance company. So we're going to be an actuary working in an insurer. And we're going to imagine that Andy wants insurance. He wants insurance against the risk of him being unable to play tennis over the next, let's say, 10 years. Now, Andy earns a lot of money, so he wants a big payout in the event that he is unable to play tennis. So let's say that we establish an insurance contract with Andy such that we pay out £50 million if Andy is unable to play tennis. And let's say that's in the next 10 years. Okay? Now, that's not going to come for free, okay? So we're not going to give away the £50 million, but one big role of an actuary within the insurance company is to decide, well, if Andy Murray wants that protection, that financial protection that we've been talking about, against this risk of him being unable to play tennis, he's going to have to give us a bit of money to provide that protection. And that money is called the premium. So the question is really, how would we go about deciding how much of a premium to charge Andy for this protection benefit? And the answer is really, there is no one right answer. So a big part of the role of an actuary is in using what we call actuarial judgment in order to make a decision on what this number should actually be, using our knowledge of kind of maths and statistics, but also ideas of how humans behave as well. So what kind of things would we need to think about here? Well, there's quite a few kind of big elements to consider. First thing is, well, we know we're going to have to pay out if Andy's unable to play tennis, but what does that actually mean? So does unable to play tennis mean that he just falls over, grazes his knee, and is unable to play for a day? Would we pay out then? Well, hopefully not. Whereas it might be more of a kind of more severe definition where he's out for at least a year, let's say, unable to pick up a tennis racket for a year. So we would need to first of all make a decision on what the definition of unable to play tennis actually is. What else would we need to think about? Well, what is really the question, the probability that this is actually going to happen? What are the chances that he is going to end up unable to play tennis in the next 10 years? Well, how would we work that out? And this is where the kind of judgment comes in, really. Well, what do we know about him himself? One thing we're going to be interested in is his own health condition, and in particular, any kind of previous medical history that he or his family might have. What do we know about that already? Well, if you know a bit about tennis, perhaps you know that a couple of years ago, he had quite kind of serious surgery on his back, actually. So we know that he doesn't have a fully kind of pure non-medical related history. He has had struggles in the past, and we need to take that into account when we're setting the premium. What else? Well, I mentioned family history there as well. We might need to think about any other kind of illnesses or ailments that his family has had. We might look at his brother Jamie, who's also a top tennis player too. We'd think about other aspects of his lifestyle. So how often does he actually compete in tennis? If he's playing nearly every day, then he's putting his body under quite a lot of pressure when he's doing so, and that could lead to a greater chance that he actually has some kind of accident, which leads to us having to pay out, in which case we need to charge a higher premium, and he does play very frequently at the moment. What else? Other elements of his lifestyle. So could he get up to kind of risky activities like, I don't know, extreme ironing on the top of a mountain, where there's a chance that he could fall off and hurt himself in other ways other than just tennis, for example? Would we need to pay out then? If so, we need to factor that into our calculations. But beyond him and how old he is as well, is it likely that he'll still play tennis in 10 years? We need to look at the wider idea of statistics on tennis players and potentially sports people too. So how often do professional tennis players experience injuries which does end their career, at least for some significant time? The problem with that is, well, there's only a small pool of professional tennis players out there already, so not a lot of data out there, and very few of those themselves would actually have had accidents which did curb their tennis career. I can only think of a couple of those in the last few years which has actually happened. So not a lot of data to work on, and difficult to apply that to his individual situation. So a lot of kind of risk here, if you like, and uncertainty in setting this premium. The final thing, just to kind of cover that we might also have a bit of a think about is, well, let's have a think about how Andy Murray might behave if he actually had this kind of insurance. What we might find is that when people are actually insured, they know they've got that protection. They know that if something happens, they'll get this big payout and everything will be fine. And that in itself might encourage them to take more risks. So to play in a little bit of a riskier way, safe in the knowledge that they are protected if things do actually go wrong. Okay? That's called moral hazard, and it's something we'd also need to think about. So what we really need to do as actuaries is look for this information on the individual, on the tennis players, on the sports people that we know about, and somehow really bring that all together to try and predict the future and come up with this premium that we would charge. But, as I mentioned, a lot of judgment underlying the assumptions we make about the future here. So there's not a clear-cut single answer to this premium. When I used to work in insurance, we had a very similar situation actually, where a professional sports person came to us asking for a similar kind of type of cover. And we worked out this answer to this original problem, as I was mentioning before, quite an unusual situation. We decided on the premium we would charge. We quoted it, but in the end it turned out to be a little bit too high. Okay, so also need to think about the situation. Can this person actually afford, would they be willing to actually pay the premium that we would need to charge or not? Okay, so that's a little bit of an insight into what the work of an actuary might involve in terms of a premium calculation for an international sports star in industry.
Can I ask, what kind of amount of money are we talking for a premium for someone of Andy Murray's level?
That's a good question.
Direct debit?
It probably is going to be in the at least hundreds of thousands, probably millions actually a year.
Wow.
Because of that risk and uncertainty, really. So we're very uncertain about what the chances are of this actually happening, this risk actually occurring to Andy Murray. So because of that uncertainty, that means we need to factor that into our calculations, which means in itself a higher premium. So where there's higher risk, we need to cover that really with higher premiums and or kind of higher reserves, as we call it. So if we actually wrote this contract, we'd need to set aside money in order to make sure we could meet this payout if we actually had to make it. So we'd actually have to calculate how much that should be too. But yeah, if there's a lot of uncertainty, it could actually be a lot of money we're talking here. Certainly not going to be £20 or anything like that anyway. Great.
Okay, great. We're going to be online for a few more minutes, just so people can ask their questions. We've got a question from Keir, and he wanted to know, how can he become an actuary without going to university, and how long would that take?
Okay. Cool. So I'll talk a little bit about becoming an actuary, then lead into, I guess, our own courses as well. So to become an actuary, you need to, as I mentioned, pass 15 professional exams. And there's really kind of two ways of doing those. You can either go straight into an actuarial graduate role from typically a kind of maths degree or some kind of numerical degree. Engineering, physics as well is another way to do it. But the other option is that you can actually do a specific actuarial science degree, which is really what we offer here. As I mentioned, you've got these 15 exams to pass. If you go in fresh from, let's say, a maths degree, you'll typically have to work through those 15 exams. And that can take quite a varied amount of time, depending on how quickly you get through them. I think the average amount of time actually is kind of 4 or 5 years, but could actually be longer than that. In terms of the actuarial programmes, the big benefit of those is that they provide exemptions from those actuarial exams. So, for example, if you studied actuarial science with us, either the undergraduate or the postgraduate degree, you would actually be able, if you did well enough, to get exemptions from 8 of those 15 exams. So that's more than half of them. So that really cuts down the amount of work that you need to do while you're needing to study and work at the same time in industry. So I think that's one big advantage of an actuarial degree. But in practice, you can go into it from a kind of pure maths or kind of physics degree. So there's various kind of routes into the profession.
Okay, great. Layla says, what's the number one piece of advice you would give to a hopeful actuary?
Oh, that's good. Number one piece of advice to a hopeful actuary. I would say, I guess there's kind of two things. If you're preparing to be an actuary, you know that's what you want to do. I would say, try and get a bit of work experience. So try and get into a company that you know someone who works in, even if just in finance. Get into a company, get a feel for the kind of environment in which actuaries work. If you could actually speak to an actuary, fantastic. Actually get as many kind of individual kind of views on people who do that job as you can. I guess that's true of any job, really. But that would be the big thing that I would say.
Thank you. Ian wants to know, what A-levels or higher would he need to do actuarial science?
Yes, so for the undergraduate degree, if that's what you're interested in getting involved in, the entry requirements are, they're on our website. I'm thinking off the top of my head here, I think it's 3 A's and a B you might need. It's something like that, some kind of area, with an A in maths, so we always look for an A in maths. If you're a Scottish student, then you can go straight into our first year with those kind of grades. There's also the possibility of second year entry too, if you do advanced higher maths as well and get an A in that. So there's a possibility of second year entry. If you have a little look on our website, I'll give you the exact entry requirements, but it's something around that we're looking for.
Layla says, good answer.
Thanks, Layla.
We're going to ask one last question, which is something that we get asked quite a lot. Yeah, I'd say, what opportunities are there to work, especially maybe if you're an international student? What are the sort of opportunities to work as an actuary? What kind of companies would you typically go into? Is there opportunities in the UK? Is it quite a big employment area?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying earlier, I think the kind of aspect of risk being such a big kind of focus in companies these days means that there's, I think, actually more opportunities for actuaries than there ever has been before, to be quite honest. And typically there are the kind of traditional roles in finance. There's a lot of, for example, life insurance companies, consultancies who give advice, for example, to pension funds on how they might set their contributions for pensions, how they might invest, but also increasingly consulting for other financial companies as well, so helping them to build models in order to model the risks that they face too. So there's roles, all those kind of roles really in the UK and beyond. So actuaries are becoming increasingly in demand, particularly, I know we get a number of students from Asia, so for example in China, Malaysia, Thailand, because again this focus on risk is becoming so much more important really across the world. So I think the future is actually really bright for actuaries about a whole lot of different areas, even these days extending kind of beyond finance. So one of our graduates, for example, he works for a betting website, so that's all about involved in kind of thinking about the probabilities of events happening. So our kind of expertise can actually extend quite far beyond the kind of traditional roles too.
Great. I think we're going to finish up just as one last question. Is there a good professional body or company that students can follow, maybe online, to get news and information about actuarial?
Yeah, sure. So the actuarial profession itself, so the kind of governing body, if you like, is called the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries. And their website is actuaries.org.uk. Actuaries.org.uk.
It's okay, we'll stick it on as a comment as well, yeah.
Actuaries.org.uk, and there's a section on there on becoming an actuary where there's loads of more information, profiles of people who do the job for different companies too, that you can have a look at.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Gavin.
Great, thanks very much for attending, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.